So if you'd like to hear any lore, and I mean any lore whatsoever, consider checking out the Patreon. Because even if you're at the $1 tier all the way up to the top tier of $10, your voice is heard once a week when I ask, what lore would you like to hear? I put a poll, your voice is heard, and I choose whichever wins the poll. By way of Patreon, this week's lore comes to us hot and fresh on Vault 75. Now, if you're a Fallout fan, you know about the vaults. The original name for the Fallout series was going to be called Vault 13, and it was going to be about, well, it is about you going to find the water chip. So the vaults are such a core part to the game, and they should be reflected, in my opinion, they should be reflected on to be a storytelling aspect to show what greed and control and power does to a person and how it can be most likely a bad thing. So you get Vault 75 located under the Malden Middle School in Boston, in Massachusetts. Now this vault, the overseer is never directly named, but it is known that she is female. The experiment was the refinement of human genetics. It had selective breeding, genetic modifications, and hormonal therapy. I've been talking a lot about the Xbox lately, and the other day at the gym, I ran 5.5 miles, and I listened to the Halo 3 soundtrack, and I cried pretty much the whole time. Kinda joking. This experiment reminded me so much of the Spartan program. And if you don't know, Spartan children were stolen from from the parents of these kids. They cloned them, and I don't remember if the kids were given back or if they killed the original kids, and then the clones were raised to be soldiers, and that's why Master Chief is supposed to be just a man with a mission. He's a dude in a suit with his only identity being this: I need to just follow orders. I am a trained super soldier, right? So this reminded me of that quite a bit. This was planned to last many generations, and in order to have a race of super soldier children, human embryos were experimented on. You know who else experimented on human children embryos? That's right, the Nazis. In the event of a nuclear holocaust, the school would be a safe haven for the school's children, for the students of the school, and their parents, and the subsequent teachers. Now, in 2277, October 23rd of 2277, every student with their families and teachers made their way to the school. Then the children were separated and went to the atrium, and the family and the teachers were moved to another part of the building, and they were murdered. These children are separated from their parents, from the people they trust the most, their caregivers, their guardians, and then they're murdered so they can separate the kids from the parents. But the kids were told that their parents were just going to orientation. Now this was kind of chilling to read, because I can imagine this. I could imagine, especially if you go to a school in America, you could imagine what it's like to know that people are being murdered inside of it. It's chilling to think that there's kids that are just being separated from their parents and then are then told lies. I'll explain what I mean by lies in just a second, but imagine taking a 9-year-old away from his parents, and the 9-year-old is scared because everything outside is gone. Everything that you've ever cared about is vanished, is vaporized. Everything is destroyed. The law and order is now gone. There is no law and nothing resembling order for at least the first 30 years, in my opinion. Like, nothing is going to happen. It's going to be pandemonium. This kid just watched his entire world burn. It's maybe him, let's say a 9-year-old, his little 7-year-old sister, and they are marched into a different part of the building, sans their parents, and on the other side of the wall where they are given their speech about what is going to happen to them, their parents are currently being murdered. The children were raised on horror stories that were from what were called the Up-Top Land. This was Vault-Tech's nickname for the wasteland. Graduation would happen for these students when they were old enough and strong enough to go to Up-Top Land and save people. So I get all of my lore off of fallout.fandom.com, a great wiki, the Nukipedia, if you will. It's a great wiki where it's great for resources like this, where you can check in, see what you need, and what have you. Reading something like this and understanding what this is, and how the wiki's written, how the games are written, that it just kind of lets your mind wander. Were these kids told that you're going to be a big, strong man, woman, or they, and you're going to go up top and you're going to kill anybody who gets in between you and what is righteous and what is good and what is glorious? And think about what that does to a child's mind. What that does to a child who is a little more... And this is also, like, kids today are different. Kids, like, bullying doesn't exist for kids today. Everyone's just nice to each other, apparently. Not that I talk to a lot of kids, but, like, from what I understand from my brother and from my friends, like nieces and nephews that are younger, like, bullying doesn't happen. Now, I could be wrong, but from these two instances, from these anecdotal evidence that I have, that's what I've seen. And... imagine just a kid who's a bully goes, oh, I'm going to get big and strong. Like, I'm going to go up top land and I'm just going to make what I want of mine. Like, I'm just going to take what belongs to me. And that's just, you're breeding just mental illness, man. Like, you're just hurting people. But it's Vault-Tec. And these experiments were to continue until Vault-Tec said, hey, stop. Which made me think, there has to be some faction of Vault-Tec that's out there that is still operating, because so many times do you hear from these vaults saying, okay, when we give out the all clear, but then they don't. But then there's like certain times where the all clear was given a couple days later, which I could expect. Not everybody's dead in the first month, but a large portion of people would be. And it's just, I'm wondering in what Fallout game will we meet a genuine Vault-Tec representative that isn't just the guy from the beginning of Fallout 4 who's like, hey, come buy real estate in the underground. Now, once you hit 18 years of age inside the vault, the most intelligent and physically fit were convinced they needed to take a vaccine to harvest their genetics. It's never stated exactly what process is used to harvest these genetics, but it's implied that it's some sort of either organ harvesting or breeding or storage of the species, of the specimen in some capacity. So imagine being 18, your hormones are going crazy, you could bench press 350, and you have the IQ of a genius, and the nice fella who still works for the school, quote-unquote school, Vault-Tec, what have you, goes, hey, go in that room and breed. What do you think happens? What do you think happens once they do that? And possibly it wasn't even that it was them breeding. It was most likely them just taking DNA that they needed. Again, this is something that the way the wiki's written, the way that the game is written, it doesn't tell you exactly how the process is done, and it really lets your mind wander. While I was doing this, reading this off of the Nukipedia, I kept thinking of Logan's Run, kind of like a very barbaric, very primal version of Logan's Run. And for those who don't know, Logan's Run is a post-apocalyptic movie, which I reviewed with my friend Kyle. There would be a little thing in the corner right here for that review if you're curious. But it's about a society where once you hit a certain age, I believe it's 30, once you hit 30, you are recycled. And you do this process and this whole thing, and then you follow Logan and how Logan chases runners or people that are trying to escape death. And it reminded me of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was an inspiration for this. But again, Vault-Tec has the ability to... They built this school. Like, they got money. They built this school. It was a functioning school. They built a vault underneath it. They have the ability to put cryogenic pods like they have in Vault 111, and it's in Boston already. Like, it's not far from it. You could just put a few of them there. So let's say they have 8, and they've got 8 generations of kids. They drop off the seed that they need so they can breed, and then all of a sudden you have another generation and another generation and another generation. And then once the guy who's in the last... Again, this is not stated. This is speculation. This is what the game does correctly, because in the notes, when you read the terminals, it states that the vault is much bigger than it lets on, be it that something collapsed or it's inaccessible. it implies that the vault is much, 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 much bigger. So maybe they have something like this of just people, kids, 18-year-old kids, just frozen in stasis. If the kids were not up to the call, they were not up to snuff, they were not what the Vault Tech people deem strong enough, smart enough, any of that, they were killed. And their bodies were then incinerated after their graduation ceremony. A little party saying you did it. Again, not much is stated. And in my mind, they drank the Kool-Aid. Like it was, hey kids, we're having a party. You want a drink? Next thing you know, they're gone. By 2287, the vault has been abandoned. And at some point in time, there was some sort of a rebellion, and it's believed through notes in the terminals that it was possibly done by someone who had graduated and found out what was going on, and they said enough is enough of this. It is now a hub for gunners and various other raiding activities that go on in the vault. This is kind of where they've taken refuge. If you have access to a vault, you have access to one of the strongest buildings, facilities, what have you, that you could possibly have access to. Just some quick notes for you. Both Vault 75 and Vault 95 from Fallout 4 are the only two vaults that do not have obtainable jumpsuits. This is one of the locations where you can take followers with you and they will comment on what the vault looks like. They'll comment on things about the vault. Kate says when you enter, "We'll all be damned, another vault." Cogsworth can say in the combat training room, "Curious, it's a replica of the surface. I wonder what it was used for." Curie can say, "My vault had us conducting secret experiments on the residents. Perhaps the same is true for this one." Dance will say when you enter the combat training room, "It's a training yard. Was Vault-Tec training their own private military? Private army." Hancock will enter and just go, "Hello." McCready will say, "In the basement of a school, Vault-Tec was running out of ideas when you enter." Nick Valentine will say when you get to the combat room, "Now this feels like home." Preston Garvey said if they just waited till after the war, they wouldn't have needed to go through all this trouble building all of this when they get to the combat room. It's about all I have for you this week on Vault 75. A fun vault, a neat idea. I just wish I remember this vault more. I wish this vault was... I think I did it super early on, to be completely honest. I think I found it and was like, cool. And then went to go do everything else. And then I beat the game and I was 150 hours in and I was like, gonna take a break from this one for a little bit. My second playthrough, I'll do it. And then, I was out of high school, so I didn't really have a high school amount of time. So I just started doing something else. But that, my friends, is this week's Lore. Hey, wasn't that clip great? Wasn't that a whole lot of fun? If you like that, consider listening to the whole podcast of Atomic Radio Hour. We do Fallout lore, but we also do a ton of other fun stuff. On screen right now are a couple of names that I have to thank. These fine folks are part of our Patreon. From the $1 tier to the $10 tier every single week, your voice is heard when I ask a poll concerning the lore. And also at the $10 tier, you can watch the podcast episodes get recorded live. I want to thank these fine folks. I love you, each and every one of you. Thanks for checking us out. Stay tuned for a recommendation for what I think you should watch or YouTube thinks you should watch. And also, subscribe to my channel. Throw it a like. Give it a comment. See you guys soon. Love you.